The horrors that took place in Auschwitz are unspeakable, but we must speak. This is a day of remembrance. Today, the 27th of January, marks our collective responsibility to remember the unspeakable atrocities committed towards all the victims of the Holocaust. 6 million Jewish people, the Romani people, the LGBTIQ communities, and many others that were stripped of their dignity because of their ethnicity, identity, race, behaviors, or because of their political or religious beliefs. The Nazi regime callously murdered 17 million men, women, and children, and inflicted unimaginable suffering and pain on millions more, while others' silence stood complicit. We remember those that perished and those that survived. Survivors burdened with unimaginable hardship. Survivors such as Zili Schmidt and Zoni Weiss, whom we are fortunate to have present with us online today. We remember those that, to paraphrase the title of Margot Friedländer's book, had to try to make a life in a world that tried to completely annihilate them and their families. How low humanity sank. On Holocaust Remembrance Day, we remember crimes committed against humanity in the past, but we also remember the importance to speak up in the present. United in diversity, we speak up against Holocaust deniers, against conspiracy myths, against disinformation, and against violence of every kind that target and single out members of our communities. Because despite decades of effort, we have not yet done enough to combat discrimination. In recent years, across Europe, anti-Semitic attacks are increasing, and our children are no exception to this violence. Only 2 days ago, a 12-year-old boy from Livorno in Tuscany was insulted, kicked, and spat on simply because he is Jewish. Fear still exists because anti-Semitism still exists, and because the fundamental right to be free from discrimination, irrespective of gender, race, ethnic origin, or sexual orientation, is threatened daily. We cannot allow complacency. We cannot allow impunity for acts of hatred that instill fear in members of our communities. Holocaust survivor and Nobel Prize winner Elie Wiesel said, "I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides." And the European Parliament will always take a side. The side of respect, the side of human dignity, the side of equality. The European Parliament will never be silent, and today we lit up the European Parliament in honour of all the victims of the Holocaust. We must consciously act every day and in whatever we do to ensure that our communities are not marginalised by exclusion, hatred and indifference, and we must learn and we must educate. The 2005 United Nations resolution that designated the 27th January as the International Commemoration Day in memory of Holocaust victims also emphasises the importance of educating about Holocaust history, so that the darkest chapter of European history never, ever repeats itself. The United Nations resolution calls for actively preserving all Holocaust sites that served as Nazi death camps, concentration camps, forced labour camps, and prisons. And these sites, as we've seen, offer history lessons in themselves. Sites such as the Alsace-Moselle Memorial in Schirmeck, just a few kilometers away from the European Parliament's official seat in Strasbourg, where through knowledge and education, current and future generations can learn about the hunger, thirst, disease, violence, and death that were part of the everyday life of Holocaust victims, and they can never learn to ever forget. Today, we mark 77 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp, a liberation from evil that signaled that there was still hope. The European project was built as a political manifestation of never again, a response to the horrors of the Third Reich with the ambition to integrate democratic countries together in the hope for a better future. It stemmed from the bold ideal that strength could be extracted from tragedy, that from the ashes of our common history we could forge a common destiny, a destiny where the values of peace, fairness, openness, and cooperation could be instilled in us all, because this is our Europe. And today it is truly an honor for this European Parliament to welcome Holocaust survivor Margot Friedländer. Your lifelong commitment to combat discrimination through initiatives like the Margot Friedländer Award that supports young people in standing up against modern-day forms of anti-Semitism, racism, and exclusion, and your lifelong dedication in sharing the message of your life is an inspiration to us all. And for this, we thank you. "40 years ago, Simone Veil held the same role that I hold today. The first president of a democratically elected European Parliament was herself a former inmate of Auschwitz-Birkenau. And so this responsibility that we must carry as a house of democracy is not only institutional, but also deeply personal. And we will honor the legacy of the Holocaust victims by never forgetting, by never being complacent, and by always, always speaking up.